Hi everyone, I'm Zach Reinhardt, here to review the new Butcher ABC album, North of Hell. Butcher ABC is a very long-standing death metal and gore grind group from Tokyo, Japan, and they've been together since 1994 is the date I could find from Googling around at least. And this is somehow their first full-length record. I've known about Butcher ABC for a pretty long time now, few years at least, and they run the Tokyo-based extreme metal label Obliteration Records. If you're into extreme metal genres, then definitely check out Obliteration Records. It has some really good artists on there, and I've covered one or two Obliteration releases in the past. I know that the band Final Exit, which is a very strange grindcore band that I've covered before, is associated with Obliteration Records. And also I've covered Butcher ABC before on this channel in an EP wrap-up. They had a split with an American band called Necrofilth. I think they were American, that I covered briefly. And Butcher ABC's sound is pretty old school death metal. There's definitely bits of more modern metal kind of infused into their sound now, but they're pretty stuck in their old 90s death metal grind band style. And that sound is something that I was really into when I was in high school and when I was a teenager. I really listened to a lot of old death metal bands like Cannibal Corpse, Death, 6 Feet Under, stuff like that. But it's not really a sound I find myself all that enthralled with nowadays. I don't really listen to those old death metal bands all that much anymore. But Butcher ABC is a band that's been around for such a long time, and this is their first full-length record, and there was no way I was gonna not review it. I mean, really? So getting into the actual meat of the album here, this thing starts off with a short, kind of spooky soundscape of growling, monstrous voices saying, "Join us," and that is the name of the first track. Join Us. And it's kind of like cheesy B-movie horror kind of stuff, but it's also kind of charming in a way. But when that first intro track is over, we get into a pretty solid, visceral track right off the bat with the song House of Meats. And this song really starts the album off with a bang. It is pretty old school 90s death metal in a lot of ways, but it also has some very clear, nice modern production that is punchy but still extremely heavy. And the production on this album in general is really top-notch for a metal album. And this song really just showcases Butcher ABC's ability to write good, catchy, heavy riffs and pair that with just enough kind of noisy chaos and make some fairly effective and memorable metal tracks. This song is nothing groundbreaking for heavy music in general, but it's so visceral, well produced, full sounding, and well performed and punchy that it's really hard not to enjoy yourself when they're just jamming on these riffs. And there are some really great riffs on here. Unfortunately, though, after this strong start, the album takes a little bit of a dip into mediocrity for a while for me. Tracks like Nuclear Death, Morbid Angel of Death, and the incredibly well-titled Darkness in the Dark are songs that just feel really middle of the road for me. Feel like they might have been a little bit more exciting, I don't know, 5-10 years ago. But now they just kind of feel a little dated, a little tired, and it just seems like kind of running through the death metal motions without any real attempt to do anything particularly unique with it. I find I like Butcher ABC most when they're being a little crazy and they're doing something a bit more experimental, like on tracks like ABC Butcher's Co. Ltd., which is a short, kind of balls to the wall aggressive track that is just there to see how loud and crazy the band can get. I also like the track Death in Hell, which has a very chaotic, blast beat filled verse that is kind of juxtaposed against a more composed and typical kind of groove based chorus that has a really good, just heavy, chuggy, slow riff. And like, I'm just kind of a sucker for heavy, chuggy, slow riffs. But where this album really starts to shine are the last two tracks, Death by Napalm and the title track, North of Hell. Death by Napalm is a dense, chaotic, and very loud song that I find it hard to actually really wrap my head around, just because I get kind of lost in the kind of unbridled aggression of the band on this song. There are these strange, kind of monstrous, screeching vocals that are completely unintelligible, that are paired with the more typical shouty, screamy vocals that are on most of the other songs. And for the first half of it, Butcher ABC is just being as loud and noisy and fast and blast beaty as they can, as they slowly build into a kind of slow, doom metal-y section that closes out the song and fades into the noise intro of the almost 9-minute long opus of the album, North of Hell, which is by far my favorite song on the album. The song starts with this kind of lo-fi drum beat and bass rumbling over top of just some noise and a little bit of feedback and some distant lead guitar noodling that goes on for well over a minute as the intro to this song, and almost feels like it's building into like psych rock. Everything is kind of covered by this haze of lo-fi noise, and it's just generally much spacier and quieter than any other point on the album. But Butcher ABC doesn't allow you to get too comfortable in your lo-fi psychedelic reverie, as they interrupt you with one big aggressive hit of metal that really hits like a truck in this song. When the intro ends and they finally get into the metal, I just scrunch my face and headbang, and I can't help but be just completely taken by it. And it of course helps that this song has some of the best riffs on this whole album and is one of the most interesting songs on here as well, songwriting-wise. The song is constantly evolving and moving forward. It is introducing riffs and slowly phasing out older ones, and it all eventually builds into this great climactic shred solo in the middle of the song that is really the centerpiece of this whole song and is the reason that this kind of 9 minutes of padding on either side are there. Not to say that it's just padding. The song is really great front to back. Once again, I gotta say the production really sounds great on this track. The rhythm section while the solo is going on is really punchy and clear, but it does not interfere with the solo guitar at all, and it has a very nice, fuzzy metal, a shred tone to it. And as the solo ends, the band just drops into this heavy groove that they ride out for a few minutes into the end of the song. And the lead guitar's noodling kind of continues through the rest of the song, but it fades to a very distant background roll. And the song eventually fades out, and we're left right back where we started, with these growling, inhuman voices saying, "Join us," while a little bit of noise goes on in the background. And that leads to the end of the album. Overall, I really enjoyed my time with this thing. It's been a long while since I've really just delved into a kind of classical death metal record, and this is definitely one of the better ones for me to return to. Like I said, the band is a bit stuck in their ways. There is some kind of tired metal tropes, and honestly, it gets a little bit cheesy sometimes with these kind of heavy groove metal riffs that they play. But overall, the production on here is really good. The performances are really tight, and while I'm not thrilled about all of the songwriting, there's no bad songs on here. Only just some songs that I feel are kind of underwhelming. The album does start off very strong and end very strong, however, and there are some good tracks in the middle of the album alongside the more mediocre tracks. And I think I'm feeling a 7 out of 10 on this album. So yeah, if you are looking for some heavy, extreme metal that is not too experimental and weird, this is a pretty safe bet for you. There's really nothing you're going to dislike on here. And there are a few songs that do push the kind of old school death metal envelope a little bit farther, and I think work well and kind of push that envelope to great effect. The production is really exactly what you would want out of an album like this. It's punchy and it's clear, but it's still heavy and full sounding and dense, and it at no point feels overproduced or underproduced. It's just right. And yeah, that's me. This is the new Butcher ABC album. It is called North of Hell, and you can find it on Bandcamp, and I understand that they are also putting out physical releases, so you can probably find those somewhere. All right, next week we start the end of year wrap-up stuff, top 10 EPs, top 10 or 20 albums or something, and yeah, so look forward to that. Those will be fun. I've got a lot of listening to do for that, and I'll see you guys next week. Happy New Year. Peace.